You're now off mute. Happy is online on TV.
Apologies.
Okay. I think we're good to go, Cappy. Do you want to run it from there, remote?
Yeah. So first call to order. Do we have anybody online or in the location? I can't see for public comment.
Not in the room.
Not online.
Okay. And I think we can move on to the landscape committee recommendations.
Yeah, should be.
Yep.
Excellent.
Great. I'm going to share my screen. Just bear with me.
I'm going to check the mic here. Elaine, Cappy, can you hear me okay?
Perfectly. It's crystal clear.
All right, awesome.
Okay.
Thank you. So my name is Gennady Pilowski. I live at 3 Harriman Avenue, just a little down the street. And I'm here on the behalf of the Library Landscaping Committee to kind of give you an update. We provided you with some preliminary design review a couple of weeks ago, might be a couple of months ago now. And since then, the committee came together, had a very, very productive discussion, and so wanted to pass on what we've discussed tonight. You could go to the next slide. So at the core, we are supporting the library's mission. And while I think the rhetoric is currently in flux or being changed, fundamentally, what we're looking to do is to establish communities and connections between people. And one of the ways that we could do this is by giving them a third space. So you have your work and you have your house. A third space is beneficial for folks to gather and have discussions on topics that might be interested to them. So we looked at dedicated space that is outside of the library that would facilitate learning and activities such as concerts or shows. Events that are currently held inside could potentially be held outside as well in good weather. And we also wanted to examine smaller spaces that can be utilized by smaller groups, such as book clubs or tutoring sessions, and that are easily accessible or more accessible than what is currently what we currently have available to us. Just a friendly, welcoming environment is really what we're after. You could proceed to the next slide. Thanks. So a quick review of what we've done up to this point. We've engaged both the community as well as different members of the staff in the library and the town hall, and had discussions on this topic with them, got some guidance from them. We've also went out and worked with Activitas, provided guidance to them. Activitas was designing plans as examples of what can be done, how the outside space can be utilized in support of those core goals. And then they came back to us with a preliminary estimate, which was about $1.2 million. We never really gave them any bounds. We wanted them to really focus more on designing the most welcoming space, the best space we could have effectively, without coating everything in gold. And so we don't want to limit ourselves. They also provided us with a value engineering option, which was about $800K. And then since that meeting, the Library Landscaping Committee has gotten together multiple times. We've gone through everything that was presented to us by Activitas. We ended up ranking things based on the community feedback, as well as what we thought would really suit the core mission of establishing relationships and connections. So if you go to the next slide, this is the original Activitas proposal. We actually had 4 of them. But the main takeaway here is the areas that they wanted to fix. Effectively, on the slide, it's the left side and the bottom side. of the library. They wanted to remove everything, like pull everything out, including the dirt, re-level it, and then start from there. So they wanted a blank canvas, which is where a significant cost was coming from. Could proceed to the next slide. So our group was focused on addressing a couple of core items that seem to always come up, which was, a patio space for either entertaining or engaging, learning, teaching, etc., as well as shade, and provide native plants, which would give us a bit more of a sustainable option. They require less maintenance than non-native plants, of course, and the ability to maintain whatever it is that we create out there. So it would be really helpful if folks could actually water the plants that we put outside. And one of the items that we looked at was what is the most underutilized space and how we can better utilize that space. This is a really, I just want to take a moment here because this is a really cool point that was brought up. When we first started these meetings, me personally as a individual, I was very fixated on a couple of items. Those items you will not be seeing tonight. And I was advocating for them until a few folks rose this particular point that we should really examine on the underutilized space. That in itself isn't really important. The part where I think that it's important is the fact that a bunch of folks came together and put out different things, some of them that I've never even considered myself. Like that was a clicking moment. As soon as I heard that, it was a realization of, wow, that is actually what we should be focusing on. So this just goes to show you that there's strength in numbers. When a lot of folks sit around the table and discuss how to achieve something, diversity of opinions is very helpful. Certainly was in this case. Sorry about the tangent. You could proceed to the next slide. So here we took the original design that was presented to us by Activitas, and we sort of cropped out a handful of different things, highlighted the areas that we believe we could focus on right now to better serve the community. So at this moment, that is what we decided is effectively underutilized space. I don't know how easy it is for you to read this map from a bird's eye view, but on the bottom half, you have effectively the slope that's
sorry.
there, right? And then we have, it's all right. I think sometimes it's just difficult to orient yourself as to what it is that you're looking at if you haven't been staring at this map.
Sorry. There we go. It's supposed to
And then the other part that we wanted to focus on is a little bit to the right over here, where we could plant different vegetation, again, native and potentially rain garden. So that's what we focused on. We thought that that would be the best thing that we could make a recommendation on. Next slide, please. And then maybe zoom out just a little bit.
Yep. So
we focused on a handful of different items. So active program space, right? This has been a reoccurring theme. We would like to have a stage. I'm calling it a stage. There's a handful of different words you could use. A patio, I'm going to use them interchangeably. So just think of them as synonyms as applied to this presentation. We believe that we could accommodate a couple of dozen different people in that area. This was already estimated by Activitas for us. The caveat was that they were going to put a very expensive seating there that cost like a little bit over $250,000. And that was a little bit outside of what we think is feasible. But that isn't to say that there's not an alternative approach to address the seatings there. So the landscaping, of course, again, focusing on the native plants, and that could also be used for educational purposes, be it maintenance or discussion. And we do want to incorporate a sink that has been around since, I actually don't know how old the sink is.
1896.
It's a really old sink from
Older than I am.
when this building was originally a high school.
Elementary school.
Elementary school, sorry, before my time, possibly before your time as well. So we would really like to fold that back in.
You mean an actual sink?
It is,
No,
let's see,
it's in my yard.
Oh,
It's been there for years. You must have seen it.
okay.
The next time you go by.
I will. I'll pay attention.
it's very elegant and it could be served effectively as a bird bath. So
This big around.
Okay,
It sits on the ground.
okay.
it's not just a random sink.
Old kitchen
I
sink.
was struggling to understand. I'm picturing a white cast iron sink. I'm like,
Picked it up at Home Depot on the way to the meeting.
I don't know. You want a place for people to wash their hands outside? Like I wasn't,
See me after the meeting.
okay.
I'll explain it all.
All right.
We're gonna have you dress up like Prince and do the subscribe video.
The purpose of it is both decorative to sort of work with the other aesthetic elements that we would like to introduce, as well as historic. A part of it is, it's been around for forever and used to be part of this building. So this is the sink coming home, if you will.
Okay.
With regards to the maintenance items, so we do believe that we need to have, dedicated trash and recycling containers. This would allow us to maintain the grounds. So when I'm referring to maintenance items here, it's to how do we preserve whatever it is that we've crafted? I'm using royal we here as well. I'm not necessarily doing this part. And then, of course, access to irrigation, right? Again, we need to be able to maintain native plants, and we need to make sure that it's not a burden onto the staff or the DPW, whoever is watering them when there's a drought. We don't want it to be a burden. I think right now, staff has to go on the other side of the library. Not exactly sure where the connection is to the water, but there isn't one on this side. So we would like to have one. And there's plumbing already, so it's not a heavy lift as far as I think. Next slide, please. So there are some nice to haves. I think of these as kind of like a bonus items. If the contractor is able to fold these in to their design without going over the established budget, that would be awesome, right? That would give them in advantageous position when they're bidding against other contractors. That's sort of the way I perceive it. So sustainability, we would certainly like to collect or reuse water. Small group seating, different picnic tables can accommodate a handful of individuals. Having outlets outside would allow people to maintain, like their laptops have a connection. Lighting that is dark sky compliant, both in terms of one preserving the night sky, but also not really shining into any of the neighbors' windows. Then, of course, there's decluttering. Should we, work in an area where there's already existing items, such as, for example, the bike rack? We don't necessarily want it to be thrown out. We would like to reallocate it, so reuse those items. We could always expand the patio in principle, like when you write the scope, and then potentially upgrade the irrigation system to include underground lines so that it's more autonomous than a person with a watering can. So these are just nice to haves. And then next slide, please, Amy. Thank you. And there's a handful of items that we believe that we can address ourselves, like we as a community. These are not overly complicated. We can work with the DPW to do some landscaping. There are trees and shrubs that are already under their purview. So the removal of it actually has to be done by them, as far as I understand. We can't have a contractor come in and remove those be it trees or shrubs. So we could also provide seating. If you've been to the town hall recently, they have a bunch of different, I'm not going to pronounce this right. I'm not even going to try to pronounce that right. They have like 10 chairs. They have 10 chairs. So we could certainly come together as a community and purchase them or relocate them from the town hall in the middle of the night and not tell them about it. There are means of providing seating here. Is all I'm trying to get across. The picnic tables should be, of course, accessible by everyone. That's something we should always keep in mind. And then the funding is, can be achieved we never wanted the town to pay for this. This is the first thing that we set out or crossed out. So the funding can be achieved through different means, being raising it from different groups that already raise funding for specific purposes, or more of a community sort of sell a brick. You get a little brick and we incorporate it maybe into the seating outside or into one of the pavers along the road. So while this option isn't completely flushed out, we do believe that there are means of achieving this goal. Next slide, please. So what we are recommending to the Board of Library Trustees as the Library Landscaping Committee is to move forward with effectively and work with the town to develop I guess it would be an RFP or an RFI,
Yeah, it's RFP or an RFQ, I think.
or it could be an RFQ.
Depends on how, I think 350 might be an RFP, yeah.
But we're looking at a budget of about 350 or so. That would be our recommendation. This budget was derived by examining the estimated cost from Activitas based on different items and the specific items that we are targeting. And this budget can certainly change. That's where I think the RFQ would come in. But that's our recommendation at this time. If you want more details, I'm happy to discuss how we came up to this. And then we are requesting that you allow the Library Landscaping Committee to continue to work with the staff to get it across the kind of the finish line to get this RFP out there and explore the funding options that are available for this. Ultimately, it is up to you. And at this point, it is up to you, as in the ball is in your court. We do need a little bit of guidance, recommendations, or directions where to take the Library Landscaping Committee next. So we set out on this, we set out about a year ago, I would say, a year and a half ago, to explore what can be done with the outdoor space around the library. And I think we were able to achieve that. We have this overall vision that was presented to us that ran at about $1.2 million. And we scoped it down. It could certainly be achieved over multiple phases if there's interest for that. But the items that we've identified and talked about briefly today with you are the critical ones that we would like to see as a committee, and probably as residents as well. We'd like to see you folks really try to kind of address. And there is, I believe, a more extensive report that will be shared with you. Is that correct? It's like a 3-4 pager.
Yes, we can. Yes, it's information that we've shared with the landscape committee that we can distribute to you all after this meeting that summarize sort of everything in the preferences, basically how you got from point A to point B.
Yeah. And, so there's a little bit more details there. At this point, I'm happy to take any questions from the board if you have any. But we as a committee would like to hear from the Board of Library Trustees as to where you think the committee should go next, or what is the committee's role moving forward.
I have a couple of questions. To get to the 350, did you go back to Activitas and say, okay, we're thinking these two, and how would you scope that out? Or did you more look at their original proposal, and if it was a la carte, you picked and choose what you wanted to go with, and then you came up with the 350?
Yeah, so it was the latter option.
Okay.
It was more of an a la carte, and I understand that's, there's some costs associated with them just coming out here and bringing a bunch of construction equipment.
Right.
We try to play with those numbers, tweak them.
Okay.
But really, it's a guessing game on our end because we are not Activitas.
Yep. Okay.
So that budget can change, can vary. But in order to so assume that it'll go over just a bit, right? In order to kind of mitigate that, part, we also decided that it is more than feasible for us to do some of the things on our own. I think those two actions might end up balancing one another out, but again, it's a rough number.
We also didn't know how they decided on some of the things. Were they choosing more high-end things, mid-range or lower? And we didn't really know whether the furnishings, for example, were going to be really expensive or not. So that's another way we thought we could perhaps mitigate some of the costs.
Yeah.
If we had a better handle on that kind of stuff, which we didn't have because we didn't know how they price things.
Right.
Prices seem kind of high to me, but maybe I'm just out of touch too.
Yeah.
We also had a limited amount of engagement with them because they were doing us a favor, in effect, by piggybacking onto the Birch Meadow project. So they'd already had an engagement with the town. So a lot of what you would normally, I think, do with a provider, I don't want to say we didn't have the opportunity to, but they were sort of throwing this in as part of Birch Meadow because of the relationship with the town. So we didn't get a lot of insight into how they came up with it. And we had a very limited number of times we could actually meet one-on-one with them, to have them explain whatnot. Everything else would have been billed extra as a consulting fee.
They did go a step above what we asked them originally. So that I believe they squeezed in an extra meeting with us, as well as provide us with a value engineering that they were able to turn around pretty quickly. So they were, they're good to work with, but the scope of their work was very limited.
Okay.
I'll just add too that at one of our last meetings, Jane Wellman is the new assistant town manager, and she was formerly director of operations. She's very familiar with the procurement process, was on the meeting. And she was very positive about it. And she felt that the town staff would be able to really craft something. She's very experienced with it. She felt very positive, and that there were definitely elements that you could get, provided that there's a commitment to figuring out the funding half of it. We just have to somebody has to sort of make that commitment, whatever that is, whether it's through fundraising or reaching out to donors, or whether it's, I don't know what it is, anything, however you decide to do it. But once you've decided on what the budget is, and as Kenna said, you could do this all differently. You could say, well, we'll just do $50,000 worth of work this year, and then we'll, do something in another couple of years. But at least the design, I was very pleased with the design and how it came up in the performance.
That was my other question is, do we have to have a commitment for funding before the town will do an RFP?
That was my question as well.
Yeah, it's a little, yeah, I think it's something that you want to approach with some organization behind it, meaning have some sort of budget plan and target date. You can't, you'd want to be able to use, we do have gift money that's, some of it is available. I don't remember, we moved like $60,000 into some of the trusts that could earn interest. So we do have some things that we could work with. We get state aid every year. We could earmark that. So obviously it would take a little while to get up to $350,000, but not as long as you think. So there's definitely possibilities. And then we also have other, there's also other donors and fundraising that could be done. So you'd want to kind of do them simultaneously, maybe lagged.
Am I correct that we've received some form of a sustainability grant in the past, or am I confusing organizations?
No, we have a $20,000 dig-in grant, LSTA grant, which is specifically for programming, elections, and then some facilities improvement, which might go to pay for like a picnic table or something like that, or actually right now it's mostly dedicated to the parking lot side of the building. Those are sort of one-offs. So I don't know of any specific building grants.
So one of the things, if you don't mind me just adding on, one of the things that the Library Landscaping Committee did do was reach out to a state representative to see, reached out to Jason Lewis to see if there are funding sources that are available for us to tap into, be it at state or possibly maybe even federal level. I think federal might have been pushing it too hard. And so Jason Lewis put us in contact with a couple of people. And then those people put us in contact with the library assistant director who just received the grant. It kind of went full circle. So we try to do our due diligence and see where there's funding sources available. That isn't to say that we're out of ideas. We've tried the state level one, so.
Well, I mean, I would say as far as the drilling down in the process and how it's been described at this meeting and throughout, I think it's very impressive. I don't know what your vote was for, but my vote was for the patio and steps. So that was exactly, I think there's so much use that can be done out of that. And I can just see parents sitting there enjoying their coffee while their kids are putting on their little plays and people are in another world. But I think it could be summer reading, just tons. I think that was my favorite part from the beginning. So unlike you, I got lucky. It stayed there.
I was more focused on the upfront seating area. What is it?
Pergolas.
Pergolas.
Oh, yeah.
And I think maybe a part of it was just me seeing something shiny and just.
You have to admit, it was impressive. I mean,
It was good
auto
looking.
closed when it rained. Like, come on, who wouldn't want that? I got a check for 75 grand. Let's go. You know.
As I said, through the discussion,
Yeah.
as soon as someone mentioned, it was just a light bulb in my head. Like, oh,
I can just, but the native planting around it and just that space, I think could be very, very useful. Trash and recycling, I think it's both important, but I also want to make sure that we do start a trash bin for whoever happens to be driving or walking by the library. Because that's always can be an issue. And then I would just wonder about the chairs and table stuff to make sure, like, we aren't running down and, us and Matt Cronalis are stealing each other's furniture, just to make sure it's not there. But I think it's all very impressive. And I think from where you started to where you got, I think you get a lot for that. I do think from my own personal experience with library-related fundraising, it's a big ask. That's a big nut. It's a big nut to cover, and it probably takes many hands and many oars, whether it's going to a few places or organizations to see if they can make a bigger commitment, whether it's doing the bricks, so it's like the tennis courts and everywhere else that have done those in the past, a way of piecing it together. That would be my only worry from,
I think
my understanding is that that's a big number.
one question would be so the landscaping committee is a public committee, which falls in its own thing. And I think one question that the trustees would want to consider is, and this might be a joint meeting with the two fundraising groups that we have, is do you create a third fundraising group that is just for, exterior landscape improvements? Or do you find a way to work with the two existing fundraising groups so that they can have campaigns? So I think that's a discussion that.
Who the existing fundraising groups are that you're referring to?
Yeah, we have the Friends of the Reading Public Library and the Reading Public Library Foundation.
I just didn't know if it was some town thing.
No, these are basically our PTOs or boosters. Yeah.
Makes sense. Thank you. Sorry.
So you could ask and try and found a third one, or just for this particular campaign.
Well, I think the real question, or not real question, one of many of the questions is the figure to start.
Yeah.
And then the figure on a yearly basis going forward.
Yeah.
Because that's where it becomes, what is that actually going to be?
Yeah.
I would worry about a third group, but I do think having discussions with the Friends and Foundation and perhaps even doing a presentation at their meeting, or if we do it, we could organize a joint one, I imagine. I think both organizations have different priorities and different donation histories, though, however, so that's something to keep in mind. But that said, adding a third group to the mix, I think if it's a special one-time raise, that's one thing. If it's another ongoing, then you lead to confusion because nobody knows
I think this
who the friends are.
this would be a one-time raise.
Versus the library.
Right.
So.
Um,
But
I
that-
have I have a question, just in regards, because this is not in my wheelhouse. I've never had to raise large amounts of capital for an improvement project. So I don't have experience with it, but I know how we came up with the 350. What is the, process, let's say, that we find that we could do it a lot more cheaply? Do we need to commit to 350 before we do RFP, RFQ? As
No,
like
you-
a house?
No, you
Or-
just need to commit to a certain amount. You need to commit to a certain amount. So if you can get a chunk from here, a chunk from there, and a chunk from wherever, the magic money fairy that I say is always going to come down, then you have that committed amount, and then you can go out for an RFP. And what you would do at that point is just say, this is the section you want to do. Maybe it's just the patio, not even doing the steps.
Since you said the town has experience with this.
Yes.
specific People, it feels like, other than us in the library landscape committee, who have no clue how much a patio costs, they
Yeah.
would. Like-
Yeah, they do.
Like 350, what are you talking about? We could do that for
Yeah.
125.
Right. No, and
That's where the expertise lies, is what my question is.
yes, and there's also been a number of situations, kind of like you do with hiring, which is you can take your RFP or your RFQ and you can go out. And if nobody responds, then you've learned something, right? The absence of data is data in itself, which is like, okay, the market is not going to bear this. And sometimes it's just like what you do with your house. Like nobody wants to fix your little bathroom now because they're all doing whole house renovations. So then you have to kind of adjust what you're looking for. And, like the same thing with jobs. Sometimes you got to go out a second time, post that job a second time, just because you didn't get the right resumes. So you're always welcome to say, you could even put out the bid, you can have them committed to money, put out the RFP, get responses, look at the responses and say, yeah, we're not ready to, we're going to cut, we're going to pull it. We're not going to do it. So there's always until you sign the letters and you have the thing, the town always has a right of refusal. But the contracts are made with the town, not with the library. I think that's just one thing to remember. So, and it comes all under the town liability. So, and we've, one byproduct of this whole process is, we've really had some great conversations with the town engineers and all the folks in DPW about things that can be done here under their purview, which is not considered extra work, that is considered really part of their actual care of maintenance of the property, and some of their directives. So there are directives, there are environmental and sustainable directives that they have. So for example, I mentioned possibly have a rain garden or a swale or something on this side where we have a lot of erosion. Well, they already had to do that down, with all these other projects that they're doing, and they are required to do a certain number of that, whether it's a part of the Green Community Initiative, but a lot of their grants and things to rely on that. So they're all on board and they want to help and they want to, create spaces in town that are sustainable and green as well. But, just some of the stuff is definitely outside of their purview, but I've learned a lot.
So what are next steps for us? Is this something we need to commit to now, or can we put this on the agenda for, say, October?
Yeah.
Once we have a little more information. I mean, because it feels like I know we need to move on, but I would like to get a little more transparency into the fundraising and the ability, the costs, I guess.
Yep.
We might, in other words, if we can find out people, we can get to the 350 number.
Yeah.
But our estimates are larger than expected. We may get more than we bargained for or expected, which would be great. And also they may have a better understanding of how to compartmentalize this, saying, oh, if you do this, everybody's going to be on board and then they're going to want to do this, et cetera. So it would be an easier fundraising ask than dumping a 350K
Yep.
on somebody's plate.
Well, one thing is Pat, you mentioned presenting to those groups or having a joint meeting, and I guess do you give permission to the landscape committee to do this presentation to the Friends and Foundation? Would you like the committee to approach them? And, you know, I know their meetings are starting up now that it's September, to get on some agendas, to start the discussion. You know, as Kenna said, the more brains in the room, the better. You know, you're going to get some different ideas and some different thoughts.
Would we need to give that permission?
Yes, we
Just
need.
have those meetings?
I don't think you need necessarily a motion. I just think it's good etiquette not to have somebody just randomly approach someone and say, I mean, Pat's the chair of the foundation.
We have your blessing.
Pat, can we do it? Hi,
Yeah,
Pat.
can we do it? Can.
Congrats.
I don't know who to, I think it would be Denise Wire for the Friends, and I think Andrea could actually even make that introduction.
I mean, I do think it's a different conversation with the Friends, though.
Yeah.
I think it's two different missions. And I would view this as, yeah, I just think there are two different missions of the two different entities, and that this fits one better than the other in my eyes.
Yep.
But, yeah, I mean, I think setting it up makes sense to me.
Getting on the agenda. Okay, sounds great. But yes, absolutely, you don't, in fact, you definitely don't have to take any action on it tonight. I think tonight was just, you've been handed the package, you've been handed the
We
presentation.
just have the recommendation. We don't have vote or anything in the notice anyway.
But you, I mean, honestly, you could have a discussion in October and say, this was all great, folks. See you later. We're going to disband the committee. We're not going to.
I will say unless it's changed again and I've missed it, I believe the Thursday, the 19th is the next foundation meeting.
2 weeks from now.
Yes, we moved it a week. So that is a potential date. It is a date that is looking very problematic for me. But I don't have the best track record of foundation meetings anymore, but it's Thursdays.
I'm just going to throw this out there. I mean, I don't have any issue at all with the committee approaching the Friends. I'm just more wondering if that's a good fit.
I think it really is just, one of the reasons I bring it up to them is that I do think they should know about it. I think they should understand it, and that it's an initiative on the part of the library. This has always been sort of the, with any fundraising, you don't want people to feel like they're fighting each other, that it's sort of a gladiatorial thing. So if someone can say, like, we're not saying at all like, oh, house tour funds would go towards this, but just be aware, in addition to the house tour, there's going to be 4 other fundraisers in the spring or something like that for, you know what I'm saying? So I think it's really important, especially for a project like this, and, you know, for our new mission, building connections. This isn't necessarily about what the landscape committee wants or what the library staff wants or even what the trustees want. We want to get as much community involvement with this, because we see this as building a community space. So I think the more it's out there, we have schematics that we can put out, and if a group wants to take on that. I just want to be very clear that the landscape committee itself, as it stands and as it's put together as a public committee, cannot do any fundraising. The trustees cannot actually do fundraising. There's just a lot of, you just want to make sure you're following the ethical laws on.
Yeah.
You can certainly ask people to donate, but you can't have a bake sale. Of course, library staff can't do anything. So.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, folks. Appreciate the time.
Thank you, Gunnar.
Have a good
It's great.
Thank you, Gunnar.
Thank you, you too.
We appreciate it. Okay, any questions on that? Or I think we can move on with the fall programming and summer reading report, unless there are any questions or comments.
Just share that.
Hello, I'm Andrea Fiorillo, Head of Public Services, for the fans joining us from afar. So I'm going to do the fall update, but I'm also going to recap summer reading for us. If we can go to the first slide, Megan, the next slide, I should say. So we had three, so we didn't have an overarching theme this summer. The children's room did a sticker-based prize program where they handed out little scratch ticket bookmarks, and kids could choose what to do on it and come in for a sticker. They also had 5 karaoke machines that they raffled off for raffle prize winners, people who spotted our giraffe around town, our giraffe. And you can see that the program attendance was robust with 1,150 kids coming out for 57 programs and a stunning 2,887 for the passive programs, which are the little thematic areas throughout the children's room. Adults there in the middle, the really boring looking one, is a bingo card, which is the first year we've ever done this. And the bingo spaces had books you could read, but also download an app from the library or various different services, plus some community things they could join in. And if they got a bingo, they would win. They got a chance to win a gift card to Whiteland Books. And if they did a blackout, they had an opportunity to win a larger gift card to Market Basket. The teens had a STEAM, science, technology, engineering, art, and math theme. They had 3 baskets, STEAM-themed baskets to raffle off. And kids could submit reviews, or they could come to programs to get a raffle ticket. Across the board, participation was down this year in terms of people actually signing up to participate or submitting reviews or coming back with the bingo card. We're not exactly sure why that is. With teen summer reading, participation has been down ever since the high school stopped requiring specific required reading. And so that's been going on for, I don't know, maybe
3 years, maybe.
4 years
Yeah.
or something, like post-pandemic, I guess. So they used to have to come in and get specific book list for 9th through 12th grade, and now that only happens for 6th through 8th grade. And so we've seen a real decline in teens coming in to find books at the library. They may well be reading more on our apps. That's almost certainly true. But there aren't as many actually having to come into the library to find specific books. They can read whatever they want. Yeah, and all the programs I'd say were pretty well attended. So we had interaction. It wasn't like people weren't coming to the library and participating in summer reading events. We had pretty good turnout, but actually participating in the summer reading program, it was a little more low key this year. Next slide, please. Okay, so these are some of the things we did out and about in the community. Beyond the walls of the library. The Friends Speaker Series that we launched in June, we took that out to the Pleasant Street Center, and we've done 2 recorded sessions and then a discussion series, and we have 1 more coming up this week or next. So we've done one with legal correspondent Nina Totenberg. We did one with Chef Lydia Bastianich. And Rick Steves is going to be speaking at the next one. So this is a pre-recorded event where we have chosen it for the content because it's like discussable. We had the book bike at all the Reading Rec concert series in parks this summer. We had weekly sunset story times in various parks throughout Reading. We started this new outreach effort this year that we're piloting, Treats and Beats. We took our really popular concert series for children that we just launched and took it out to apartment complexes, especially trying to find folks who live farther away from the library, are more likely to be renters and more likely to be multi-language learners. And those were really well attended, and those audiences were definitely the ones who came out. We went to the Lions Friends and Family Day and tabled there like we always do. We also took the book bike to the Lions annual fun run. All right, next. Okay, so the Friends Speaker Series. Last time I was here, I was talking about how we were just going to launch this in June. And since June, we've had 6 live watch parties. So these events happen live first, and you can join them virtually. But we also have had in-person events here at the library to do that. And we had over 95 attendees at those 6 different live watch parties. And we've had over 4,000 live and archived viewings of the content since we launched in June, which is kind of staggering. And we actually didn't believe that statistic. And we went back to them and said, really? But those are the folks who are finding it through our website. So people who are interacting with the content through our website. So this is just a small sample of what we have on offer. These are all available all the time for people to get, but you can also join them live and submit questions. So that's been mostly a stunning success. All right, next slide, please. Fall highlights. I'm sorry, that's really small. Could you read it? Yeah, you can read all those things. Okay, so for adults, we have mental health first aid, again, offering that with the Reading Coalition for Prevention and Support. We have a disaster preparedness with the Massachusetts Emergency Management Agency. Salem Witch Trials, Search for Alien Worlds with the Earth's Largest Telescopes. That's Joshua Lieberman, a local PhD candidate. Well, he's not studying locally, but he's from Reading, who's going to be speaking in a hybrid event. A couple of big Friends speaker series authors, Leanne Moriarty, who's an international bestseller, and a talk called Liberating Latin American Literature with author Silvia Moreno Garcia. She's written several bestsellers. And finally, we're having an artist reception for our community seed beading project. So with the vice president of the Massachusetts Tribe, we've offered all these seed beading workshops over the course of, it's almost 2 years now, where Thomas, who's a Massachusetts educator and artist, has been teaching the seed beading process, and then they put together a final project, and we're going to be having a reception, and that's going to be permanently housed at the library. Something that represents Massachusetts art and culture and will permanently be housed here to sort of establish that relationship and that presence of the Massachusetts people that is still with us, but we haven't really acknowledged so well until very recently. With the children's department, we are opening the tween space officially. We're going to be inviting donors and the friends, and especially the tweens who are going to be planning this party for us. And if you haven't gone up, I know last time I spoke, I think the mural had just gone up, but now all the furniture is there. You've probably all seen it. It's very nice. And it really is being used by tweens. There's a Creeping at Real horror writing workshop for tweens. Trails and Tales series. That's going to meet on conservation land. And it's for grades 1 to 3. They read a science story, they hike, and they make a nature craft. So that's pretty great. We have this concert series because we've had such high attendance at like Peter Sheridan and all of these other concerts we have had. We've decided to try to invest some money in bringing in some big and more diversified concerts for kids and also out in the community. Plant Lab on the patio is going to be planting pumpkins, greens, and houseplants. Our teens are doing their 6th grade tours coming up this fall. That's always a big undertaking. We're doing a cemeterium craft. They're launching the teen advisory. Do you want to know more about the cemeterium craft? Okay, so here are my notes. Okay. Teens can assemble a fun, spooky scene with a gnarled tree, gravestones, mushrooms, moss, and haunting characters, all contained in a covered glass terrarium jar.
She said the font was little. My first reading was crematorium craft. That's
I almost
my glasses off. Hey, Bum, I'm like,
marker.
It's big on mine and still.
So I didn't go there.
Yeah. So yes, there's definitely like a fall Halloween-y kind of through line here in all the ages. There's Build Wave, a hands-on building game, and K-pop crafting event coming up. These are just highlights. There's so much more than that. All right, we can go to the next one. So these are some new things or some things that haven't been happening lately that are coming back. I'm sure Amy's already briefed you on the Dig-In grant, so that the money drops in October, and we're going to be doing programming and reporting all the way through September. So it's really going to be a year-long thing, and that's why some of the programs, the highlights of the fall, are kind of nature-based, but we'll really be kicking into that gear in the winter and the spring and summer programming. Teen Advisory Group. This is a group that has been on hiatus. We've working with Michelle and Megan Clemente and Megan McCabe, our teen librarian. We've really re-envisioned it as something that teens apply to. We're asking the teens to be older. We did have it open to 6th to 12th grade, but that's just like kind of a ridiculous range to try to get kids that are that young and that old to work together on something meaningful. So we're focusing on an older age group. You have to be at least in 8th grade up to 12th grade. And they're going to be doing Dig-In themed. Do we have a name for Dig-In yet?
Just about,
So we're going to soon have an actual name for our Dig-In grant, but that's what the Massachusetts Board of Library Commissioners calls it. So we're going to be aligning the Teen Advisory Group with program and content around the grant, as well as building some job skills for the teens. So we've really thought about it as a very much beneficial to the teens who can really put it on their college applications or their resumes, as well as a relationship building with the library. Knit Crochet Group is coming back. We used to have a group, but we haven't had it since COVID. So they're coming back. Mahjong meetups are restarting. We have some new book groups as well as some oldies. The Real Story is a new nonfiction book group that's starting up this month. We're hoping to bring in a few folks that we might not have been appealing to as much with more fiction-based groups. We have a new outreach book group at Peter Sanborn Place, which is income-sensitive housing for disabled and elderly folks. That meets every single month. We've had a really nice turnout for that. The RPL book group, which is patron-led, is now going to be called Factor Fiction. And the old stalwart Word of Mouth is having either their 26th or 27th anniversary next month. So they're still going strong. Like I said, the Children's Room has put together some really big, thoughtful concerts, including the Soholina Trio, Brazilian music, Marian Marcotto, Movement and Music with Miss Julie, and legendary Peter Sheridan. We have the National Voter Registration Day next week with the town clerk, Laura Gem, and some volunteers that will be here helping people register to vote. And then we have a couple of community-led programs in the Children's Room. We have a new Mandarin story time that some local parents have put together. Story time that's completely in Mandarin. We also have 2 new programs that just started today with the North Suburban Child and Family Resource Network, a Music Makers class for toddlers, and a Hello Baby new parent group, which I'm really excited about. Because it's scary being a new parent.
It's scary being an old parent.
Yeah. So yeah, that's just a very quick rundown of what we have on tap, what we did this summer. Questions? You can go to the next one if you want. Next slide. That's it. Any questions?
as always, great.
Yeah.
Great.
Questions for me, very detailed.
As always.
Thank you.
Just,
Thank you.
Mara and Matoko was crazy pants. Had them multiple times because that was crazy. Kids love them though.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Andrea. Perfect as always. Next on the agenda, we have a discussion and vote on the meeting room policy updates.
Okay. Should we look at the red line or do you want to see the final version? Share either. Sharing.
I'm good with either.
Okay. All right. Michelle, do you want to just,
Move we accept the meeting room policy as presented?
I mean, I have,
Second.
I actually, do you have some questions about it?
We can have discussion, we can have
Okay.
a vote and we'd have a discussion and then we vote at the end.
Okay, great.
so we have a second for the motion?
We have a second to the motion.
Okay.
Now the chair's about to invite discussion and recognize Ms. Verrier.
like discussion.
I just thought you were going to give us an overview.
So last time that we met, we talked about how we were just doing some brief changes. We talked about adding just some specific language because we're moving our software. So the language would be specific to that.
I believe a lot of the changes that we ended up doing based on last month's discussion had to, and Megan, correct me if I'm wrong, some of it was formatting.
Yep.
And reorganizing things so that sentences, there weren't 2 points in one sentence, and eliminating duplicative statements.
Making it clear.
Making it clear, yes.
I did have one question about, because I've seen this on a lot of contracts where it says, you know, if you use a credit card, additional fees may apply. It's number 12 there. You just saw it. How does that work exactly? Like, do you tell them post, hey, you're using an Amex, we got to charge you 6%, or how does that work?
So it would be something like, do you ever pay online for any kind of town processing? So it would be similar to that. It would just say, if you're paying online, you're going to pay 35 cents more.
Usually a percentage, and it's a flat percentage regardless of the card you use. I know what you're saying, which is like Amex charges more than Visa, which charges less than some frequent flyer mile thing. But it's usually just either a percentage, and since we only have very limited numbers, it would be a certain percentage of the amount. So $10 would probably become $11.50 or something like, or $11 would be.
I don't need any language changed. I've just always been curious what that means.
Yeah. I think the principle for us to put this in is not, obviously we're a nonprofit, it's to help defray the costs, assuming that more and more people will pay. We don't do this now on our printing because it's 20 cents a page and it's very difficult to calculate things like that. So we absorb the cost on that. But with these different amounts, it just is going to be easier to handle the, we get much less funds from the room rentals than we do from printing, basically. So we do need help assisting with the defraying of the credit card fees.
Makes perfect sense. Did anyone have any questions about the meeting room policy as it is written? Is there any discussion? I personally do not have any questions with the changes as presented.
All set.
Well, we have a motion on the floor. May we move this to a vote?
Need to do a roll call?
How am I going to see that? Oh, I guess I have to call you out because I can't see you guys. There we go. Thank you. Okay, nobody else is online, just me. Okay, good. Pat,
I vote in favor.
Lynette,
Yes.
Jerry,
Yes.
I am in favor as well. I believe that is everybody. Nobody else is online, correct? So 4 is a quorum, and we pass with a vote of 4-0.
Okay.
Excellent. Next on the agenda was scrolling, pardon me. The discussion and vote of the tutoring policy.
Again, this was just shortening it up, doing some renumbering, trying to make it as reasonably enforceable as possible. And we updated it to, we took out safe child policy and put in responsibilities regarding minors policy.
Are there any questions or comments on the tutoring policy as written? Or the changes, I should say, specifically?
Not for me. I think we covered it last month.
Yeah, not for me either.
Do we have a motion?
Move to accept the tutoring policy as revised.
Do we have a second?
Second.
And can we have a vote, a roll call vote? Pat?
I am in favor, yes.
Monette?
Yes.
Gary?
Yes.
I'm in favor as well. The motion passes 4-0. Thank you very much. Next on the agenda is the discussion vote on the strategic plan. The fiscal year 26, fiscal year 30 strategic.
Yep. So I just want to thank those who worked with me to refine the language after a very robust discussion last month. There were only 2 points, which was the second strategic area of focus on community learning and engagement, the first goal number 4, which originally was talking, I think, primarily about, I think, kids and tweens to teens, but the board wished to expand that to make sure that we're looking at all types of transitions. Oops, sorry. So the change in language was to number 4 is to develop transitional strategies for all ages to grow into library services. Foster relationships with teens and caregivers through programming and enhancements of the tween space. So that allows us to focus on this brand new space that we have. Develop programs and program services and collections for post-secondary emerging adults, which is going to attack our over 18, younger than probably 30 group. And then really assess the usability of existing teen room to meet the evolving needs of teens. And that really is just an area that gets a lot of use. We see a lot of changes in how the students, how the teens are using the space. So we want to be able to, think it's been around for 8 years. What are the changes that we might want to make upgrades to in that area? And then the second area, the second change to the proposed strategic plan was in library space and place, and really sort of addressing that sort of belonging piece, which is to implement strategies to increase diversity among library staff and volunteers. And the first one, which didn't get changed, was really just talking about what we do internally to look at our strategic recruitment and looking at our staff membership makeup, but also to really look to review and to develop a plan that reviews and has strategic recruitment of diverse volunteers at all levels, which may or may not include obviously board members, but it really speaks to getting the community engagement with as many folks from our community, different backgrounds, different perspectives. So those were the 2 changes. I did not include the whole, I don't think I included the whole strategic plan. It seemed like the rest of the strategic plan, including the new mission, which was on Genna's side, nobody had any problem with that. So these were the final changes. And presented to you to vote on hopefully this evening so that it can be submitted before October 1st to the Massachusetts Board of Library Commissioners.
Are there any questions, or do we have any discussion around the changes to the strategic plan as presented?
I have nothing on the 2 final edits. I think we've hashed it out over the last couple of months, and I think it looks good. I don't have anything.
Either.
I'll move to adopt the fiscal year 26 through 30 strategic plan as presented in various meeting materials to finalize it. And do we need to authorize it to be sent to?
I just need you to accept.
I just need to accept.
Actually, if you could accept it with any minor corrections and typos that the director may have noticed while she was going through it today.
I will move to accept the fiscal year 26 through 30 strategic plan in substantial form as presented to the board today with ayes
Yes.
and T's crossed and any other edits that are necessary.
Many things I noticed.
Without running Grammarly on it.
Yes.
I second that motion.
Thank you.
Roll call.
Roll call, Mr. Egan,
I vote in favor.
Monette,
Yes.
Sherry.
Yes.
I am in favor as well. The motion carries 4-0. Thank you very much for the hard work on that. Oh, that was a lot of work.
Yeah, well done. Well done. And a long process, but well done, and already been implemented from the fall programming about the Mandarin reading.
Yeah,
Perfect example.
I know we're already ahead of ourselves. See, that's the nice thing about having a checklist.
Overachievers.
I know, we have a checklist. We already did it. Done, 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 done. No.
Step one, make a list.
Okay, next on the agenda, a reminder for State Ethics Commission Advisory 11-1, Public Employee Political Activity.
I think I did include that. Did I include that?
It was on the,
Saw that.
It was not in there. I meant to include it. I apologize. Just a reminder, I think obviously we had a state election on September 3rd, and we have a federal election coming up. Andrea mentioned our voter registration day. Just a reminder, I gave you the number if you want to have some thrilling reading to go back and remember the ethics of political activity and your role as an elected official and our roles as employees, and when it is appropriate and when it is not appropriate to campaign or have a political voice. Of course, support 100% First Amendment right to express yourself, and also recognize that we want to make sure that we are as neutral as possible in the political arena. I think it's just a particularly sensitive topic these days. It's getting to be a very heated political, and it's also something that can be quite divisive. So I wanted to just put that out there and encourage you to look up and if you've completed all your ethics training, hopefully that's still fresh in your mind as well. So I just wanted to bring that up as we head into the election season. And if you have any questions, I think Cherry will attest to the fact that Laura Gem is extremely good to work with. And
She is.
And if you have questions or concerns about what you may or may not do, please give her a call. I'm probably not the person you want to call. But Laura is excellent to work with, and anyone in her office should be able to answer any of your questions.
Thank you.
thank you. I assume this does not need any action from,
No, it truly was just a reminder.
thank you very much. Next up on the agenda is the financial report and the supplemental spending recommendations for fiscal year 25.
Sure. Just first, I wanted to mention that we did file our financial report and state aid application. And while I mentioned, and it was filed with the NBLC, thank you, Kathy, for getting me your signature on that. We met our materials expenditure. We meet all the minimum requirements of service. I just wanted to, as a side note to that, in town meeting, they will be discussing the MBTA communities, and we were asked to report on any funding that might be in jeopardy should MBTA communities not pass a town meeting, and state aid is one of those things. We got $58,000, I think, last year, $8,497 last year, and this application that we just put in is relevant. It's not chump change for us. It is. It's a couple % of our annual budget. So I did report that to the town accountant and the town manager. And that's something that we would not like to lose if we had the choice. But we did very well this year, and I feel very confident that we'll have a nice state aid award this year. For supplemental spending, that was included in your packet. You don't have to take a motion on this. If you don't have to vote, I think I would take changes advice. You can vote if you wish, but I think it's more of, what do we do with that state aid? What do we do with the gifts that we have? What do we do with the trusts that we have? And I try to work on a multi-year cycle, usually about 5 years. Wish I could do 10, but I can't. That makes my head hurt. So I try to think out about 5 years. We're constantly going with the staff, asking what their wish list items are. We're looking at things like, do we want to buy Adirondack chairs? We're looking at things like, do we need new equipment? What furnishings need to be replaced? So larger items that are not included in our operational budgets, supplemental spending for professional development. So the first page just gives you a summary and the total recommended spending, additional spending outside the municipal budget is $103,500, roughly 4%. Actually, I think it might be 4.5, almost 5% of the municipal budget. But it's allocated very specifically to help with additional programming. We have we're working on a local history project, which will include transcription and more digitization of our materials. It's going to help with the Dig In grant. The Dig In grant application included a commitment from the library to do what's called in-kind spending. So you give us 20,000, we promise another 1,000 or another amount of money to help the program be successful and to be sustainable past the 1 year mark. We always do all of our marketing communication spending through supplemental spending. We are working, as you know, and we are in progress of updating our app, updating our website, and we did just update our room management software. This was on the to-do list, so it's hitting right when we wanted it to. If needed, we do supplement the materials budget. And when I say that, it's not that we need it for certification, it's more that, oh, we really, really want something and we ran out of money, so we'd like to buy something with it, or it's a unique purchase. So state aid, basically right now we're paying for the big upgrade to the app and to the website and room management software out of state aid. That will be rolled into our, the maintenance and upkeep of that will be rolled into our annual municipal budget after this year. We are going to have some equipment and furnishing purchases. Some of it to support the Dig In grant. Some of it is additional equipment that we know we need. Local history project, marketing communication, and I always throw a little bit of in there for miscellaneous. I base this budget on what we received the previous year. So basically it's that way, whatever we get this year will be next year's budget. Gifts, any question about state aid, how we use it? Yeah.
That's not too variable, right? Like,
The state aid?
yeah, is it like a couple of thousand?
A year increase?
Yeah, increase or decrease?
Actually, we've had significant increases in the last couple of years. It was down around 34,000 a few years ago, and then it jumped to 40, and then it jumped to 50. And this year, I believe the state budget approved recently had a significant increase for state aid to public libraries, as well as state aid to the consortia, so Noble. So I expect it to go up. And in the last few years, it's been more than $2,000 or $3,000. It's been more than like 2 or 3%. It was significant numbers, so like 8, 10, 12%. I don't expect that to continue, but it had dropped significantly in the early 2000s. And I think somewhere around 2020, 2019, it sort of had come back up to where it was supposed to be. So they've been playing catch up for a few years.
So, and it's like earmarked separate. Than
It's earmarked,
state aid.
correct.
Town.
Yes, it's separate and it's only for use for the library. We can use it for anything that we want to. So it's not, I mean, obviously you're right, it can drop. It could drop. So I feel like I've just jinxed myself saying like, oh yeah, it's been going up.
Obviously, it's really tense.
Yes, exactly, exactly. So, but they have, the Mass Board of Library Commissioners oversees that line and they present the budget, their budget to the State House and through that whole process. Gifts, which are a little less predictable. But we do get gifts. Some of them are directed, some of them are not. Again, more money for equipment and furnishings. We really don't have, just so you know, we don't have any money in our current budget for equipment and furnishings, so we always supplement that. Very specifically, we are looking into providing a space within the library that is a fully accessible station in terms of like a table that goes up and down, it's wheelchair accessible, would have power outlets. We're debating a few different spaces, but it would involve purchasing new furniture, and then obviously supporting the Dig In grant and outdoor spaces. Professional development, I put in a decent amount of money for that. We do have that tuition reimbursement. I do expect to have a couple applications for that this year. If I don't spend it, we don't spend it. It's entirely up to the employee, whether they want to apply for that. It's $2,000, I think if you're a full-time worker, and $1,000. It's $2,000 a course. Megan, because
I think it's a maximum of 1,000 a course.
per course
And 2,000
per year, that's what it is, for a full-time. And then half of that if you're part-time. But you have to work at least 20 hours. Again, more programs and services, and then supplies, just in case we run out of pencils, and some miscellaneous. And then for trusts, as I mentioned earlier, we do have a significant amount of money hopefully earning money in our trust funds. Not significant. For us, it's significant. The expendable funds right now are up to $112,000. Of that, I only anticipate needing maybe a maximum of $5,000 to supplement for materials. Again, this would be if we already meet our materials expenditure requirements, we spend all of our municipal money, and there's other things that we want to purchase. Having said that, we can also use some of this money for equipment if we need to. There's at least two trusts, that allow us to purchase, whether it's art or whether it's furnishings or, shelving, that kind of thing. So we do have some flexibility there, but right now I anticipate that. And these are just things I plan on. We do have a couple things coming in. Library of Things storage, which is, right now it's sort of higgledy-piggledy all over the library, and you need a treasure map to figure out where the karaoke machine is. And the staff tried to keep up on it, but we are looking at some sort of self-service lockers that would allow people to, are they self-service? Yeah, self-service lockers that would allow us to, people could go over to the locker and check the thing out.
Yeah.
We don't have an exact price on that yet, so there's some holding numbers for that, but we'll adjust that as needed.
Amy, when we talk about gifts and 40,000 coming up gifts, what is our 5-year average of what we earn in gifts per year?
It really depends because, we seem to get, I would say we average about $10,000 a year. I don't know, that's generous. I'd say about $6,000 or $7,000 a year, actually. And then we get some larger gifts periodically. So that's why I say 10,000, because if you average it out, because then you get a bequest all of a sudden comes out of nowhere, or a large gift, or there's a memorial, sometimes we have people who are remembering people's birthdays. So it comes and goes. I would say safely to $6,000 or $7,000. But we did not spend gifts, I would say, for the first 5 years that we were in this building. We were very conservative with that.
But what have we spent the last, I looked at 40,000 and, that's a run rate of 4 to 5 more years of that fund.
Yes, but we also have a balance of $188,000.
Right, so if we spend 40 a year,
Yeah.
we'll be done in the next 5 years with that fund. So are you thinking you're gonna, I guess I'm looking to understand more, what's your longer term view for that?
I think that number is going to go up and down as projects come and go. I think it's been sitting there for a while. There was another $60,000 in there that we still hadn't spent, so.
Yeah, and I'm a fan of spending it because I think that
People give it to be used.
People give it to be used, and no one wants to give their money and see it sit there forever and ever and ever. So people give it to be used. I just want to make sure that
Yes.
it's still always there and active, I guess.
Yes. Well, and I think that's great for the trustees to really discuss about what you want as your rainy day fund, whether it's in state aid or whether it's in gifts or whether it's in trusts. You know, what's the minimum amount? I mean, that you feel comfortable going down to and then holding the spending.
But that's a big issue. So the gifts are just sitting.
Correct.
Right? So the trusts earned
Correct.
10, 11% last year on the corporate.
Right. Or they've also had a year where they lost.
Correct. I know, I understand. But they are at least poised
Yes.
to generate a better return
Right.
than, I mean,
Are we able to invest the gift money in like one of these high yield accounts and get it?
We have to put it into the trusts.
would have to go through the
Trust.
shared trust.
I would have to do this.
But is there any restrictions on that 188 as to what we
A
could?
few of them are. A few of them are, like, a few of those 188 accounts are, somebody has given specifically for adult books. And we need to track that, and we do need to keep that there. So,
But overall, it seems like the trusts are more restrictive than the gifts.
correct.
So it's a little tougher to maybe depend on the trusts via rainy day fund.
Yes.
But the flip side is it's better to touch the gifts before the trusts
Yeah.
because they're
Not doing anything.
invested.
Yeah.
I do think that it is really helpful to be able to say, so for example, if in the next 5 years, we say, oh, well, we need $75,000 to redo the to upgrade the teen spot, the teen room. So the tween spot, which was brand new, I think that was, don't ask me where I came up with that $75,000. I just made it up. But the tween spot was like about $60,000 all told. So we want to do a complete refresh or rehab of our teen spot, and we decide that there's a number there. That's partly why we have a strategic plan. It's partly why I do the supplemental spending, so that I can look ahead to see where that is. But it's also where we end up going to a foundation to say, this is a big project that we want to do. What happened in 2016 was the foundation gave us a ton of money, not a ton, they gave us a substantial amount of money. That's what we've been chipping away with. And they haven't really per se done any specific donations. They tend to work more on we need this thing, could you fund this? Mm-hmm. Versus just a blanket, here's some money. So now I know. Now we will know in 2028 when we want to go do the teen spot, because we've had a designer come in or we've done surveys, we will be able to have that money. I'm hoping we'll have enough money in our gift account still in 2028, but if we don't, we know we can have that target and we can ask. That's where we'll start asking like the foundation or stuff for that kind of thing. So yes, I can't count on it, but does that answer your question, kind of?
It does. Yes, I guess.
Yeah.
I was just more trying to understand the run rate you were using on that money. If you were mentally thinking, okay, 40 a year is the max I'm going to spend, and I'm hoping if we get, I didn't know how much came in.
Yeah.
If, 10 grand's coming in a year, I'm really only spending 30, and then what's my run rate? That's going to carry me X number of years, and I feel good about that. Or it's more, I think we need 40,000 this year to achieve all the different things we've talked about on the strategic plan that we want to achieve this year. And next year, I'm going to look at it from a clean slate perspective. I didn't know if you were, do you understand what I'm saying?
There is a 5-year plan.
Yeah, okay.
There is a 5-year plan that doesn't decimate or doesn't, maybe decimates it, but it doesn't completely deplete it.
Okay.
And I don't know what the income will be or the revenue will be. And like I said, sometimes they're just surprises. But I do think in general, the goal is to sort of spend it down to, I think when we started, didn't have that much in gifts.
Right.
So it's unusual for us to have this much in gifts just hanging around.
Yeah.
So.
Thank you.
So this was added, the supplemental spending thing was added, I think, 3 years ago. I started doing it, and that was budget transparency kind of thing, because we get a lot of questions about, well, who pays, who's going to pay for those logs? Who paid for the book bike?
Yep.
And we can say, oh, we paid for that out of gifts.
Yeah.
So we have some record of where monies go. Any questions about the supplemental spending?
The only thing I have is there's no way to get that gift money in anything that generates any type of interest.
No, we just have to
We have to
put,
go
you can vote to transfer it to one of the trusts. We have two trusts that have wording related to equipment furnishings, I think, and you could transfer it in there. And that's what we did. It's just that to transfer, well, no, I don't think you have to transfer it out. I think I can pay directly from it. I'm not sure. I have to talk with the town accountant whether we have to transfer it back to the library fund to spend it, or whether I can.
Know that just because it's not doing anything. It's a lot.
Correct. And that's, we could run some numbers, but to Pat's point is well, not to Pat's point, I do need to look into whether it's of that total number, how much it can be chunked out and how much of it can be moved. Some of it can't be moved because it is allocated to a specific purpose that, we have, and in the past, we've done other things. Those of you may remember, we used to have Adopt Magazine, right? And those were gifts, and people could donate money to support our various periodicals. We have a hefty, very lovely magazine section. There's definitely something that we could do with that, and that would change our materials budget. And, so there's other things that we can do if we do start to deplete those amounts.
Does the gifts figure include the foundation money that is here? So that's with that.
A gift, yeah.
So, strike that.
We do report to you when we purchase,
Yes.
things.
I know.
We were paying for some of the hybrid technology that's coming from our foundation.
Yeah.
I always look at Megan because I assume she's just going to nod her head and say that I'm right. I believe we're paying for a portion of this hybrid technology upgrade out of that.
Amy, can we ask for a future meeting? Can you get the information and explain to us what it would mean to move that gift money to trusts?
Yes. So the question, my assignment, Megan, would be to talk to the town accountant about spending. I think, is that the question? Can we just spend from the trust, or do we need to transfer? Is that what you're?
And then also the impact on what flexibility do we lose with that money if we move it into a trust? I want to make sure we understand.
Right.
That might be a cost to the movement that makes it such that we don't want to do it.
Exactly.
Just want to make sure we understand that.
I fully support that. And honestly, the first time we moved that money, I was really nervous and nothing bad happened. So it was all good. But it just,
Yeah.
I don't think it had ever been done before, to my knowledge. So, and all of those trusts have, some of them are very small, but all of them have a portion of non-expendable funds, which I don't report on. They must retain a certain amount of money. So that amount is just the expendable amount.
Thank you. Are there any further questions on the supplemental spending? If not, we can move to the director's report.
So the director's report is in your packet. I won't go line by line. But I did want to just really point out really quickly that Pat Egan was quoted in our online, our article from the Readings magazine that was all about our book fight, the RPL on Wheels. It was a great article if you had a chance to see it. Andrea actually covered a lot of the programming highlights. And one thing I forgot to put in here, but she did start on August 26th, was Carrie Bradeen, who's our new children's librarian, started on August 26th, so we welcome her. We have a bunch of people, I think by the time I think we'll meet before NELA, but our New England Library Association conference is coming up, so we actually have several people attending that, and Megan was able to apply for and was able to get a scholarship, so we're very pleased with that.
That's Megan.
Where is it this year?
It is in Portland, Maine.
Oh,
Very nice.
very nice.
So we're looking for new two high school pages. So if you know anyone? I think there's still, applications are still out. And then Andrea mentioned the community beading reception for the community beading project. These rooms will be out of commission from October 15th to 19th. We will not be able to use them at all because they will be doing the hybrid upgrades. There's some few horizons. I would like to give a little shout out, but kind of a large shout out to Michelle, who's been working really, really hard on 3 major projects. One is changing up our event and calendaring system. 2 is changing up and updating our meeting room reservation system. And the 3rd is managing the upgrade to our app. Those 3 are actually all tied together. So they kind of had to be done in a bundle. And it has not been awful. We've actually, Communica's been a great company to work with. Some of the other companies have not been so great to work with, which is why we're not using them anymore. But it's a lot, and there's definitely a few bumps in the road, but in general, everything has gone very, very well.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to be really worthwhile. The app is going to be a bigger transition, and that's going to be in the next week or 2.
Yes. Yep.
It's going to go live in the next week or 2.
Yeah.
Hopefully by the 25th, and I will reach out, as I said before, for beta testers with the Apple product. She was working on it, and hopefully maybe tomorrow, the next day, I'll be reaching out.
Okay,
Yeah.
sounds good.
It's a lot of moving parts, not only for staff, but for the public, and it's a lot of change. So Michelle's done a great job managing that. So it's not easy, especially when none of us are sort of trained on managing these things.
Question, October meeting, where will it be?
Did we talk about that? Oh, we were wondering whether it could actually be all remote. Or we could do, I'm sorry, no, we decided local history.
Local history.
We said the local history room.
Okay.
With remote participation. We'll use the OWL camera. Yes, it will be in there.
Okay. Would it be easier if we did it all remote?
No.
No.
I mean, everybody can be remote, but I think it's good to have a solid space for people to come to. I think it's probably easier in the long run.
I've never been in
And
there.
what?
Looking forward to it. I don't think I've ever been in there. That's the one.
Yeah,
that's
It's very
locked,
handy.
right? You have to-
Yes. I just can't have my coffee in there, so it makes me very sad.
No,
Food are great.
pens. Bring-
No, I think you
Press all
can.
my fingers with Sharpies and run in there.
I know, exactly. Everybody running around. But
Does it have a remote option in there? Is there a screen? Yeah. Oh, awesome.
there's a big screen in there. So yeah, we've actually done them in there. We've had other meetings in there. We had the landscape committee meeting in there and,
Okay, great.
and that's all I had for the director's report unless you have questions.
I do not.
Oh, yeah.
Do not. Anyone else? If not, we can move on to the ad hoc commemoration establishment committee appointment.
I was not given a deadline on this. I did check with the person who contacted me about this. So you will have one designee to represent the library and Board of Trustees. And Albert actually also has the designee for the Office of Equity. So, but that's Albert's decision. Your decision is to find somebody. It could be from the board, it could be the library staff member, or it could be a Reading resident, similar to how the board appointed Phil Rushmore to be on the Celebration Trust Committee. It's up to you. And I didn't get a deadline. I think they're just trying to get out to all these groups on that list to say, hey, you got to pick somebody. So they don't have an exact date yet, but I think it's coming down the pike.
Has anyone expressed interest?
I haven't advertised it or anything. It's up to you all.
What is this one again?
This is the Bill Russell Committee,
That's what I thought. Okay, thank you.
but the ad hoc commemorate, the official, this is the, that is what the intent of it is. They're just not using Mr. Russell's name in it.
Got it.
I mean, I would just be curious of getting a sense from people as to
Would you like me to ask
who would be
the staff?
interested. I mean, I'll tell you, I had two people that jumped out when I thought of this, but I don't know if any of them would be interested. But I know like Jocelyn did quite a bit of work, right? On this issue already, working on the documentary. So I don't know if she would be somebody interested. And or others. I didn't.
Oh, I'd be happy to reach out to the staff. We have, staff meetings in a week, actually, a couple weeks.
I'll tell you from my personal position, whether it was somebody from staff versus the board, I'm less inclined of just a resident that's on behalf of the library. I don't really have a reason for that. That's just kind of how I feel. But otherwise, I'm kind of quite flexible, but I do think that this is the commitment.
It is a commitment, and you just reminded me, it can't be someone like Jocelyn because it has to be someone who's a Reading resident. That's what I was just thinking.
Oh,
Public committee.
Well, that could certainly impact the pool.
That does impact the pool.
it might be interesting to share this with the Friends and the foundation in case there's someone there who might want to be interested.
Great idea.
I'd be more inclined to support that than just, they I think would well represent the library.
Idea. Just racking up the presentations to the Friends of the Foundation.
Take over their agenda.
Just exactly.
So, and we can put this on a future agenda item in the meantime, it says designee from the Reading Public Library and Board of Trustees appointed by Bolt. I believe, Pat, you've probably read the bylaws more recently than I have, but I think it doesn't need to be a vote. I think Cappy as the chair does the appointments. Does that sound vaguely familiar?
I remember you.
I don't know, because I think I would need to go back and see, because the liaison, the bylaws speak to the chair selecting liaisons from different people. But this, I think, would be much more akin to the charter committee.
Oh, okay.
Andrew was officially appointed to the charter committee or the Celebration Trust.
Okay.
So I think a vote would actually be required.
I'll let the chair and vice chair research that. So that is that.
That's on us. Well, when you said coming down the pipe, do you have any idea?
No, I think you should be prepared
So months.
I'd say by November, maybe.
Okay, thank you very much.
We've had this floating on the agenda a couple
It's been floating.
times.
It's
Talked about it generally, but maybe it's time to think about folks.
I would maybe have a discussion in October with a final decision by November, maybe.
Okay.
And there's nothing that precludes, there's nothing that precludes a trustee from speaking to individuals, as long as you guys aren't talking to each other. But if you're talking to the Friends, or if you're talking to a staff member, that's fine, and you can all do your own research. It's just, you just don't want to be talking to each other about your choices or suggestions.
I don't know why that light went on. Okay, we should put that probably on the future agenda items for October then, to review it at least, or at least to discuss it. Next is the approval of the August 12th, 2024 meeting minutes.
I have reviewed, I had no comments myself.
I have as well. I have none.
I move to accept the August 12th, 2024 minutes as presented.
We have a second. Roll call vote. Pat,
Favor.
Monette,
Yes.
Barry,
Yes.
And I am in favor as well. Motion carries 4-0. Final item on the agenda are future agenda items. And I think we're gonna add
Put
the,
Toys for Tot on there early, so we'll get it approved before November, because we always do it in November after they've already started their pickups. That's right. So I'm just very proud of myself. It's only taken 8 years. Every year I'm like, oh, nuts, that's late. Actually, if you have anything else, do we collect anything else?
Should you do Festival of Trees in October?
We don't do any yeah, we should.
Usually ask us.
Usually do ask for permission to post, yes. So we'll put Festival of Trees on there just in case too.
what, to create a tree or?
No, just to host them. They usually do an advertising. They put a tree up in the lobby
Oh, yeah, okay.
with an advertisement, but it's not something that's normal.
And was
to
it
do.
the Lions last year who did the scarecrow thing? Is that gonna
Oh,
be?
yeah, that was cool.
Yeah, that was great. My kids loved it.
That was great.
They didn't use any of the kit, but they loved it.
I feel like that was already 2 years ago.
I know. I will follow up on that. I'll follow up on that, but I don't know if they're doing it again this year. Yeah, I remember them sitting outside.
Yeah.
Saturday, so that's a good question. I guess it's getting to be that time of year where people are collecting things. And then just a reminder that I'll be doing the FY26 level on budget. I will present it in November, hopefully, because we're supposed to present to the select board the first 2 weeks of December. So I think there's a couple FinCom meetings in between now and then where they do the state of the budget. Sharon goes over the projected revenues and free cash gets certified, but I don't think that's till October. So hopefully we'll have some direction by then.
All sounds good. Thank you very much. Any other points of discussion this evening?
Just a quick question, just to make sure this keeps freezing, sorry. The end of the agenda, or I'm sorry, after the minutes, but before the strategic plan, there's a 1 page of Reading Holdings by ARIS statistical categories, breaking down, formats, adult, this is, I think, what we talked about at the last meeting of just.
That was Jamie's presentation, yeah.
What is, oh, never mind. I withdraw the question. Figured it out all by myself.
Hey.
Excellent. If there are no other questions, do we have a motion to adjourn?
I'll move to adjourn.
Second.
Pat?
Favor?
Roll call vote. Pat? Monette?
Favor? Yeah.
Yes.
Sherry?
Yes.
And I am affirmative as well. So we are officially adjourned as of 8:50 p.m.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much. I'm sorry for being late. I appreciate it. Thank you very much, guys.